Before the Olympians ruled the heavens, a war unlike any other shook existence. The earth cracked, the skies roared, and an ancient vengeance rose from the depths of the underworld. This was the Gigantomachy, the war between the gods and the giants, a battle that determined the fate of Olympus itself. But what if the gods were not as invincible as we were told? And what if, without a single mortal, Zeus would have fallen? Before the first thunderbolt ever split the sky, before Olympus stood tall above the world, the Titans had ruled. Their power was ancient, their dominion absolute, until Zeus led a rebellion that shattered their supremacy. The Titanomachy, the war between the Titans and Olympians, ended with Zeus and his siblings victorious. But their triumph came at a terrible cost, one that the gods failed to foresee. Deep beneath the earth, in the caverns where the roots of the world entwined, Gaia, the primordial mother of all life, stirred in anger. She had borne the Titans, raised them as her children, only to watch Zeus cast them into the abyss of Tartarus, a prison so deep that not even Helios' light could touch it. It was an act of ultimate betrayal, a crime against the very earth itself. Gaia, once the great nurturer, became the great avenger. But she could not act alone. Her beloved Titans were sealed away, and she was bound to the land. And so, she turned to her final children, the last warriors she could unleash upon the gods. She looked to the blood that had once dripped from the sky itself. Long ago, when Zeus' grandfather Uranus, the first sky god, was overthrown, he had been struck down by his own son, Cronus. As Cronus' blade sliced through Uranus, his divine blood spilled onto the earth, sinking into Gaia's soil. From that sacred, vengeful blood, she birthed a new race, the giants. Unlike the Titans, who were powerful but divine, the giants were raw forces of nature, colossal and unrelenting. They were beings of chaos, created for one purpose alone, to destroy the Olympians. For centuries, they had slumbered, buried deep within the bones of the earth, waiting for the call to rise. Now, Gaia, trembling with fury, whispered to them, and the world itself shuddered in response. The ground split open. From beneath mountains, from the depths of the sea, from the very heart of the land, the giants awoke. Each one a towering colossus, their forms twisted with divine energy. Some were scaled like serpents, others were covered in bristling armor like skin, their hands like boulders, their eyes burning with an ancient rage. At their heads stood Alcyoneus, the firstborn, as mighty as a Titan and bound to the very land he walked upon. Beside him, Porphyrion, the strongest among them, his voice alone shaking Olympus' golden peaks. Gaia spoke only once. "Avenge your kin. Bring ruin to the gods. The age of Olympus ends now." With a roar that shook the cosmos, the giants marched toward war. The earth trembled beneath their march. The very mountains groaned as the giants, newly awakened from their slumber, tore through the land like an unstoppable force. Villages were swallowed by collapsing hills, rivers burst from their banks, and forests split apart as these monstrous beings moved toward their final destination, Mount Olympus. Gaia had nurtured them for this moment. Their forms were colossal, their bodies infused with the fury of the earth itself. Each step cracked the ground, each breath filled the air with the scent of fire and storm. These were no mere brutes. They were embodiments of chaos, forged to shatter the rule of the Olympians. At the head of their army stood Alcyoneus, Gaia's most beloved, a warrior blessed with immortality so long as he remained on his homeland's soil. He carried a club carved from the roots of the world, each swing capable of toppling mountains. Porphyrion, the mightiest of them all, strode beside him, his voice alone shaking the heavens. His rage burned brighter than the sun itself, for Gaia had whispered to him a secret. He was destined to overthrow Zeus himself. Behind them marched an army of 24 other giants, each a nightmare given form. Enceladus, who spat fire and whose fury could shake the seas. Polybotes, whose strength alone could drown islands. Ephialtes, whose every wound only made him stronger. The gods watched from Olympus, feeling something they had not known since their war with the Titans: fear. Then, without warning, the attack began. Alcyoneus hurled the first mountain. The Olympians barely had time to react as an entire peak was ripped from the land and sent hurtling toward the gates of Olympus. With a thunderous crash, it shattered against the golden halls, shaking the heavens themselves. Poseidon's seas roared, Ares grasped his spear, and Apollo drew his golden bow. War had come to Olympus. Lightning flashed. The gods descended. The battle had begun. The heavens burned. The earth howled. The war of gods and giants had begun. From the peaks of Olympus, Zeus unleashed his fury. Lightning crashed down in blinding streaks, striking the monstrous forms of the giants. Porphyrion roared in defiance, absorbing the divine wrath. He charged forward, hurling a mountain-sized boulder at the king of the gods. Boom! The rock shattered against Olympus' golden gates, sending tremors through the celestial realm. Poseidon rose from the seas, wielding his trident. With a mighty thrust, he summoned tidal waves so high they swallowed entire battlefields. But the giant Polybotes, the terror of the oceans, simply laughed. With a stomp, he split the waters and turned Poseidon's waves against him. On the battlefield, Ares, the god of war, charged into the fray. His golden spear struck Ephialtes, a brute so massive that every wound only made him stronger. The god of war fought like a tempest, striking and slashing. But Ephialtes absorbed the pain, growing even more monstrous. With a roar, he swung a club the size of a city, sending Ares crashing into the mountains. Above them, Apollo and Artemis rained arrows upon the enemy. Their golden shafts flew true, piercing through the hide of Enceladus, the fire-breathing terror, yet he would not fall. The heat of his breath alone set the sky ablaze. He roared, spewing flames that turned forests to ash and sent shockwaves through Olympus itself. The gods were powerful, but something was terribly wrong. The giants would not die. Athena, ever wise, noticed the truth. The wounds they inflicted only slowed the giants down, but never truly ended them. She drove her spear through Enceladus, and even as he howled in pain, his body refused to crumble. Then, the unthinkable happened. Porphyrion leaped into the air, higher than any giant before him, aiming straight for Zeus himself. With a battle cry that shook the stars, the king of the giants tackled the king of the gods. The sky tore apart, and for the first time, Olympus itself trembled beneath the might of a true challenger. Zeus, sensing their doom, turned to Athena. "Find the answer," he commanded, "or Olympus falls." Athena, ever wise, searched the ancient scrolls within Olympus halls. Then she found it, an old prophecy, whispered through the ages. Only a mortal, born of both God and man, may strike the final blow. A mortal. For the first time in their reign, the gods were not enough. They needed a champion, and there was only one who could answer the call. The gods had fought with all their might, yet Olympus teetered on the edge of ruin. The giants would not die. No divine hand could slay them. No weapon forged in Olympus could deliver the final blow. Zeus, battered but unyielding, turned his storm-filled eyes toward the prophecy Athena had uncovered. Scroll, only a mortal, born of both God and man, may strike the final blow. A mortal. For a moment, silence filled the heavens. Then, realization struck like a thunderbolt. There was only one warrior who fit the prophecy, one whose blood carried both divinity and mortality. Heracles. Summoned by Zeus, the mighty demigod arrived at Olympus, his lion-skin cloak draped over his shoulders, his massive club gripped in his powerful hands. The son of Zeus and the mortal woman Alcmene, Heracles was the strongest of all heroes. But even he hesitated at the sight before him. A battlefield of gods and monsters, where immortals bled and the heavens burned. Zeus looked down upon his son. The fate of Olympus rests on your shoulders. Heracles nodded. He was no stranger to impossible tasks. This would be his greatest labor. As he stepped onto the battlefield, the giants turned. Their monstrous eyes gleamed as they beheld the warrior who had dared to face them. Alcyoneus, the immortal giant, snarled. He knew the prophecy. He knew this man could end him. With an earth-shaking roar, Alcyoneus charged. Heracles met him head-on. The ground split beneath their clash. The hero's club struck like a meteor, smashing into Alcyoneus' skull, sending the giant sprawling. But he did not die. He rose again, laughing, his wounds healing instantly. Athena's voice echoed through the battlefield. Drag him from his homeland. His immortality is bound to the earth he stands upon. Realizing the truth, Heracles seized the massive giant by his legs. With strength beyond mortal comprehension, he lifted Alcyoneus and hurled him across the battlefield. The giant crashed into foreign soil, and before he could rise, Heracles struck the final blow. The earth groaned as the first of Gaia's warriors fell. The gods felt hope. The prophecy was true, but Porphyrion had been watching. Rage surged through the king of the giants. With a howl that shattered the sky, he launched himself at Heracles. Before the hero could react, Porphyrion's massive hands wrapped around him, crushing him with the strength of 1,000 storms. Zeus acted. Lightning roared from the heavens, blasting Porphyrion, weakening him for just a moment. And in that moment, Heracles drove an arrow through the giant's heart. The mightiest of the giants fell, but the battle was far from over. The fall of Porphyrion sent a wave of terror through the ranks of the giants. Their greatest warrior had fallen. The gods, for the first time since the war began, felt the tide of battle shift in their favor. But Gaia's children were not so easily broken. With a roar that shook the heavens, Enceladus, the fire-breathing giant, unleashed an inferno upon the battlefield. His flames rose like a second sun, blinding and scorching everything in sight. The sky turned crimson, the air thick with smoke and fury. The Olympians faltered. Even Poseidon's tidal waves could not quench the unrelenting fire. Athena stepped forward, undeterred. Her golden shield reflected the firestorm, pushing through the smoke as she charged at Enceladus. With divine precision, she hurled her spear, striking him through the chest. But the giant did not fall. No Olympian alone could kill Gaia's sons. Heracles knew what had to be done. Drawing an arrow tipped with the venom of the Hydra, he took aim. The poisoned shaft flew true, piercing Enceladus' heart. A scream like a dying volcano tore through the heavens. The earth trembled. The flames sputtered. And then, with a final, thunderous crash, Enceladus fell. But there was no time to celebrate. Across the battlefield, the remaining giants, driven by fury and despair, gathered for one last stand. Polybotes, the terror of the seas, summoned tsunamis, aiming to drown Olympus beneath the waves. Poseidon, infuriated by the challenge, struck the earth with his trident, splitting the sea apart. With a mighty heave, he lifted a massive island and crushed Polybotes beneath it, trapping him for eternity. Ephialtes, the immortal giant, grew stronger with every wound. No blade could cut him down. Until Dionysus, with a cunning trick, offered him an enchanted goblet. In his arrogance, Ephialtes drank deeply. The poison dulled his senses, slowing his movements just enough for Apollo's golden arrow to pierce his eyes. As the blinded giant stumbled, Heracles struck the final blow. Hippolytus, the trickster of the giants, moved like the wind, dodging every attack. Even Hermes struggled to catch him, until the clever god tricked him into running straight into Heracles' path. One swing of the club, and Hippolytus was no more. One by one, the remaining giants fell. But Gaia's wrath was not yet spent. She poured her rage into a final warrior, the monstrous Mimas, the strongest of the giants left standing. His very presence warped the air around him, his weapon a blade forged from the bones of the Titans. The sky darkened. The battlefield fell silent. Zeus and Heracles faced him together. Lightning crackled as the king of the gods raised his thunderbolt. Heracles, battered but unyielding, tightened his grip on his club. The two warriors charged as one. Mimas struck first. His blade, infused with the power of fallen titans, tore through the sky. But Zeus met the strike with a bolt of pure divine wrath, shattering the weapon into dust. The giant reeled back, blinded by celestial radiance. And in that instant, Heracles seized his chance. With every ounce of his strength, he swung his club. The impact was like a collapsing star. The air itself rippled from the force. Mimas staggered. His massive form wavered. And then, as the ground quaked beneath him, he fell. A heavy silence settled over the battlefield. The war was over. The Olympians stood victorious, but the land would forever bear the scars of battle. Mountains had crumbled, rivers had changed course, and entire landscapes had been reshaped by the fury of gods and giants alike. The balance of power had been restored, but at what cost? Yet, as the gods caught their breath, a deep rumbling came from beneath the earth. A force, far greater than any giant, stirred in the darkness below. Gaia's wrath had not ended. The giants had fallen, but her greatest creation was yet to rise. Typhon. The gods had won the battle, but was Olympus truly safe? The battlefield lay in ruin. The once majestic peaks of Olympus were scorched, rivers had been diverted by the fury of the sea gods, and entire forests had been reduced to ash. The war of the gods and giants had come to an end, but its scars would never fade. Zeus stood at the peak of Olympus, surveying the devastation. The throne of the gods had survived, but at great cost. For the first time since their reign began, the Olympians had faced an enemy that nearly overthrew them. One by one, the gods gathered at Zeus' side. Athena, still gripping her bloodied spear. Poseidon, his trident dripping with the remnants of the battle. Ares, his armor cracked from countless clashes. They had won, but they had not been enough. Heracles stood among them, the only mortal on Olympus. His breath was heavy, his hands still clenched around his club. He had fought as an equal among the gods, proving himself as the key to their victory. Without him, Olympus would have fallen. "It is done," Athena said. Zeus exhaled. The giants had been buried beneath the mountains, their bodies forming the very landscapes that mortals would walk upon for millennia to come. Enceladus, trapped beneath Mount Etna, his fire forever raging beneath the earth. Polybotes, buried beneath the sea, his fury forever locked away. The gods should have felt secure. But deep within the earth, Gaia stirred. The loss of her children had not weakened her rage. It had only deepened it. The primordial mother of all, the one who had existed before the Titans, before even the sky and the sea, would not accept defeat. A deep, thunderous rumble echoed through the land. Zeus' heart turned to ice. This was not the shifting of the earth after a great battle. This was something else. Then, from the chasms of the underworld, from the very bones of the earth itself, a new terror began to rise. A form larger than any giant. A presence greater than the Titans themselves. Gaia had created her final monster. Typhon. The true nightmare of the gods was about to begin. The war of the gods and giants has ended, but the true nightmare is only beginning. The Olympians have survived the Gigantomachy, but Gaia's fury is far from over. Typhon, the most terrifying monster in all of Greek mythology, is about to rise. Will Zeus and his gods withstand this new threat, or will Olympus finally fall? Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter in this epic saga. Leave a comment below. Which part of the Gigantomachy fascinated you the most? Do you think the gods could have won without Heracles? Like this video if you love Greek mythology and want to see more legendary battles brought to life. Share this with fellow mythology lovers, because history's greatest stories deserve to be told. The battle isn't over yet. The war for Olympus continues,